Hello, everyone. Welcome to this interview in a series leading up to this year's Virtual Island Summit, which starts on Monday, with some of our partners, our organizational partners from around the world. Today, we have the topic of education, and there's a particular personal connection here. We're talking to Professor Neil Simco, who is the Vice Principal of Research and Impact at the University of the Highlands and Islands, which is where I also studied for my own Master's in Island Studies and have a strong connection to the organization, which has, I think, 13 campuses. Is that right, Neil? Spread out over the Highlands and Islands?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, 13 campuses spread out over the region and provides a really vital educational service for a huge swathe of Scotland. He is joined by Ollie Newton, the Executive Director of the Edge Foundation, one of our sponsors this year for the Virtual Island Summit, who will also be running a session on education for islands next week, which you can find more about on our website, www.virtualislandsummit.com. If you haven't yet, do go there to sign up and make sure you join the full session. But I'll now hand over to Ollie to tell us a bit more about himself and start with the interview. So thank you, Ollie.
Great, thanks, James, and lovely to be here talking to you, Neil. So the Edge Foundation is a charity that operates mainly in the UK, but increasingly has partnerships around the world. We're focused around trying to make education more relevant from primary school all the way through to university and beyond. So that's all about connecting with employers, bringing the curriculum to life through real projects, helping young people to be better prepared for the 21st century. We have been privileged over the last few years to run the Island Education Network, which has brought together a range of the islands around the British Isles to discuss issues from school, college, university, all thinking about that island context. And so, as James said, I'm delighted to be chairing a session next Thursday, and I really hope you'll join me there. But it's a real privilege today to welcome Neil and to talk about the UHI's island strategy. So Neil, I wonder if you could just introduce yourself and start off by telling us a little bit about the strategy itself.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thank you very much for providing me with the opportunity to come and talk today about the University of the Highlands and Islands island strategy. I'm very, very much looking forward to sharing some of this work that we've done. So I'm Neil Simco. I'm Vice Principal for Research and Impact, and I've been working very closely with the island's academic partner principals. The university is made up of a number of academic partners, and we have in the islands Shetland College, FC Marine Centre, also in Shetland, Orkney College, and Lewes Castle College in the Western Isles. So I've been working with the principals and other stakeholders to progress this island strategy, and we published it in August. So we're now moving into the implementation phase, and obviously as we go through the discussion, very happy to go into the detail of it in terms of the content and so forth. Perhaps I should mention at the outset that what we're trying to do here is that we recognise that we are the University of the Highlands and Islands, and that we have a public responsibility to support tertiary education, everything from further education through to research knowledge exchange across our island partners and our island communities. We have been doing this work for a long time, but the island strategy is designed to strengthen this work, to provide new opportunities, and to, in one sense, give the islands the highest profile within the University of the Highlands and Islands. The island strategy, in terms of timing, the island strategy also links very closely to the Scottish Government's National Islands Plan, where University of the Highlands and Islands is explicitly mentioned in a number of places. And it also links with the Islands Deal, which is a multi-million-pound investment from both the UK and Scottish governments into the Northern and Western Isles of Scotland. So there is a context really, not just for our university, but for the increased interest in islands that is there at the current time. And perhaps the final initial thought that I'd want to articulate is that I think at this current time, when we're experiencing a global pandemic, it is the case that some of our island communities are especially vulnerable in terms of economic impact. And so therefore this island strategy is also timely in regard to that. And we seek to work with a whole range of stakeholders, especially the island local authorities, to take forward this strategy, which has actually been co-created with our stakeholders.
That's wonderful, Neil. Thank you so much. And I really love that idea of kind of putting the islands right at the forefront of what you're doing. I'm sure that'll be music to the ears of the colleagues who are listening in, given their interests. The first area I wanted to pick up a bit more about was research, which obviously is one half of your job title. So I know it's dear to your heart as well, something that we care a lot about at Edge too. One of our roles has been trying to encourage a new generation of researchers in the education area that we work in. And in fact, we have one of our early career researchers based up in Orkney, which is wonderful. So we know firsthand the benefits. But I wondered, what do you feel the benefits are of having researchers actually based in island communities?
Well, I mean, research is fundamentally important to any university, and is particularly important, of course, to our university. And I suppose we're very used to, given the nature of the Highlands and Islands, which is completely unique within the UK context, we are very used to managing research across a wide geography. And obviously, this includes the islands. So through the island strategy, what we're seeking to do is to provide opportunities for researchers, building on what we've already got, because we have a fair amount of research going on already across the islands, but building on this to ensure that we're finding solutions to issues and challenges that the islands face. For example, our Institute of Archaeology, although it's based in Orkney College, has significant activity too in Uist in the Western Isles, and we're wanting to join these things up for maximum impact in terms of cultural heritage, interpretation, tourism, as well as the substantive work in archaeology of finding archaeological finds. So there's a line between, in this example, the work we're doing and tourism and access to archaeology. And that's just one example. I mean, there's several others that I could give. So I think if this island strategy is to have impact, and that's what it's all about, we're looking to extend the research, to extend our work, so that we can make that contribution to island communities and to the sustainability of island communities, and indeed to the economy in the islands. That's the essence of our plan. Whether that is through major research-funded projects, or whether it's through self-funded PhD students, it could be a whole range of things. But this work is very important, we feel, as part of our islands strategy.
That's wonderful, Neil. And I think, you've already mentioned that keyword that's on the lips of everyone who works in higher education across the world, probably impact. I think there's increasingly a push from governments and others to kind of see not just research for its own sake, but research having a real kind of impact. I guess island communities are a particularly good area to show impact because they're small and people can immediately see, as you say, the benefits perhaps for tourism or for the other industries on islands of the research that you've been doing.
Yes, that's very much our plan. And if you look at the university already in the islands, we have our Institute of Northern Studies based in Orkney, but has involves a whole range of different people across the Highlands and Islands. We have, as I mentioned already, our Archaeology Institute based in Orkney. We have our Agronomy Institute based in Orkney, looking at elements of agriculture. We have our Centre for Rural Creativity, shortly to be renamed our Centre for Islands Creativity, based in Shetland. We have our NAFC Marine Centre based in Shetland also, which interfaces with the blue economy in Shetland particularly. And in terms of education, we've got significant expertise at Lewes Castle College in Stornoway. So we've got all of this already, and what we're trying to do is to make the most of it, to build on it, and to take it to the next level as we go along the way. But what we're also trying to do is to ensure that there is connectivity with other parts of the University of the Highlands and Islands, and indeed other institutions, for the benefit of the islands. So one example I would give there is that within in Inverness, we have a centre within our Health Institute, which is basically looking at health issues in remote and rural areas. So we would want to bring expertise from that unit to bear on the island strategy as well.
That's great, Neil. And one of the things that we've really found over recent years is that obviously research taking place on islands doesn't have to be about islands necessarily, but where it is about those island contexts, they can provide a really great kind of almost laboratory. So in our area of education research, working with some of the islands around the British Isles, the Isle of Man, who people will hear from at our seminar next week, have been working to introduce project-based learning in their schools. Colleagues in Guernsey, who will also be with us, have been integrating their college campuses together. So some really interesting kind of research examples based on islands that I think actually have a bearing for other islands around the world, but also for schools and colleges and universities on the mainland as well. So I just wondered if you kind of had any reflections on that, where elements of your research might be applicable to other islands who are listening in, or indeed to mainland contexts as well.
Yes, I mean that's certainly a cornerstone of our islands strategy, and I think it's worth saying that all of our work in the islands, or the space in the islands, aims to be outward looking and inward receiving. So it's not as though we are, there's kind of an imaginary brick wall around the islands. We are very outward looking, and if you look at our Institute of Northern Studies, for example, they've got well developed global connections into many islands. And in fact, within that institute, we have an acknowledged expert, Dr. Andrew Jennings, who runs our MLIT Island Studies, who has extensive collaborations with other island communities around the world, and is constantly drawing both from his network, but also from the work that he's doing within the islands here in Scotland. So yeah, islands focus looking is really where we are just now.
That's perfect, and that couldn't be a better fit with the whole Virtual Island Summit theme of trying to bring people together from islands across the world. So that fits very nicely. I wanted to turn a little bit to a theme that is on lots of people's minds, given the impact, as you said, of Corona and the timeliness of this, which is just around kind of online learning. And obviously, given the context of your institution, for many years, you will have had to make use of virtual and online techniques, which others, particularly in mainland situations, have probably only been forced to start to use because of the lockdown. So I just wondered if you could say a bit more about how you've used those and any kind of, I guess, tips or tricks you've got for others who might be coming to this a bit more new.
Yes. I mean, as you rightly say, Ollie, the University of the Highlands and Islands has been involved in utilising online technology for many years in different ways, video conferencing, for example, we have historically used a great deal. But I suppose the point of principle here is that what we want to do is to use a blend of different pedagogies that suit different circumstances in our communities within the islands. So sometimes a course might be delivered through not in COVID times so much, so that we're students will be coming back to campus very soon, but it will be in a COVID safe way. But we will of course deliver face-to-face courses for students in island communities at all levels, and particularly at both at further education and at higher education. But we also, for other courses, would want to deploy a whole range of learning technologies to enable students to access our courses from across the world. And in some cases, we've got some really innovative practices going on. So one example I would bring to bear here is that in the Western Isles, we have our BA Honours Applied Music, which is based in a facility in Benbecula in the Western Isles. And this course uses an online approach in quite innovative ways. For example, we have online residentials for students to come together within this discipline of music to experience an event which would be in many ways very like a face-to-face residential event. And we're using technology, and we're trying to push the boundaries, really use it in innovative ways to enable access to students, whether those students are based in the islands, whether those students are taught from the islands, or whether it's some kind of mixture that's going on. One further example, I've talked about our BA Applied Music, BA Honours Applied Music. We also have an MA Art and Social Practice, which is based in Shetland and is part of the Centre for Rural Creativity, shortly to become the Centre for Islands Creativity. That is a global course. We have, I think, about 40 students, perhaps a few more, on that programme studying just now. And it is an online course. It uses online technologies for the whole of the course, and yet it is very much embedded within Shetland, and it's Shetland that gives it its identity. So there are some great examples and some really, really inspirational things of how, as a university in the islands, we simultaneously endeavour to meet the needs of the population of the islands, people who live in the communities in the islands, whilst at the same time ensuring that that people from around the world can access our provision. I'll give you one further example. I'm a Gaelic learner. I've learned Gaelic over the last few years, and I've been, as well as being a senior staff member, I've been a student of the university. And the course that I've done, a course called Ancursha Urtish, is delivered delivered fully online. So we have a Zoom class now every week, and there are people all around the world in this class, and yet it's based, it comes from the islands. And these are some examples of how we've been really, I think, innovative in our work. And before I hand back, Ollie, I'd also like to say that we do not regard our islands as peripheral. We regard our islands as central and core to our university. The communities in the islands are just as important to us as communities in the rest of the Highlands. That's that balance, and it's that perception of peripherality that we would not necessarily support. There's a wonderful map in one of my colleagues' offices of, I think it's Orkney, and it basically puts Orkney at the centre of the world. So why not? Not sure if they'd agree with that in Shetland, but the principle's the same.
Excellent. I love that. Let's challenge those misconceptions, Neil. Yeah, and I think those are some great examples about the kind of innovative practice that others are really only just starting, but you and others on Islands will have been doing for many years, and different stages of education as well. I know, I have to forgive my Gaelic pronunciation, but the eSchool that we do a lot of work with based in the islands has been pioneering in Scotland and the world around online teaching in school. And at Edge, we're just about to start our piece of research looking at colleges based on islands around Britain and how they've been using online technology for several years and what that might be able to teach mainland FE colleges in terms of that. So we're all for, as you say, putting the islands into the centre, whether it's of the map or of the policy question, and learning things that others can as well. That links on nicely to the kind of final thing I just wanted to touch on with you. So I think the other watchword for universities around the world, as well as impact, is probably employability, and making sure that kind of graduates fit really well into the labour market. So I just wondered, this is kind of a key part of your island strategy, but I wonder if you could say a little bit about how you're connecting your work directly into your local economies.
Yeah, it's a very apposite question. I mean, I think that is a critically important question. Particularly at this time when we are in the midst of a global pandemic, and the economic backwash of that is already being and is going to be for some time really significant. So the way that we see it is that we have a public responsibility actually to support key sectors in the islands, particularly through ensuring that we work in partnership, and we actually deepen the partnership with key sectors to ensure that there is an appropriately skilled workforce at all levels for key sectors in the islands. So this is embedded in our island strategy. It's actually the very first objective, which we wanted to make sure that skills was right up the agenda. So we're very keen, we're very keen to strengthen, take forward our apprenticeship program to have more apprentices. We're very keen to find new and innovative ways of connecting students with employers. We're very keen to ensure that our students have well-honed transferable skills, because I'm sure that as night follows day, we are well beyond the time when somebody goes into a job for life. It's about a portfolio of skills that can be deployed in a whole range of different sectors. And my sense is that island communities are particularly resilient, actually, in having people in those communities who are highly skilled in multiple ways there. So that's something that we'd want to build on. But in terms of our island strategy, in terms of our provision, we are working very closely with other key stakeholders to ensure that we deliver, or we contribute to the delivery of, a highly skilled workforce. So we work closely with the local authorities in the islands, and in fact, as I mentioned right at the beginning, the island strategy in effect has been co-created with the local authorities. We also work with Skills Development Scotland, and just today I've been in a meeting with the island's principals, the island academic partner principals of the university, and Skills Development Scotland, where we've been looking at the current situation in terms of employment in the islands, and how we can how we can continue to respond to that going forward. So we work in partnership with the local authorities, with Skills Development Scotland, and also with the Highlands Islands Enterprise, which is the economic regional development body. In effect, the degree to which the university is successful in providing this skilled workforce into key sectors is directly related to the quality of the partnership that we have with other key stakeholders, local authorities, STS, Highlands Enterprise, and of course business leaders. Borsch the Gaelic and the Gaelic communities as well is particularly important. So it's all about how we can work together as key stakeholders to take forward the needs of the islands. At the very beginning, the University of the Highlands and Islands actually was born as a project of Highlands and Islands Enterprise. So we started our life as a project of the Regional Development Agency. And the reason for that was so that because there was a recognition that a university, particularly one that was operating both at further and higher education levels, can and must have real impact in the communities, and in particular, coming back to your question, in terms of employment in key sectors. So the island strategy simply, at one level, seeks to strengthen and deepen this commitment to skills development in the islands, in the island communities at this particular time.
That's absolutely great, Neil. I know that a lot of colleagues, both island-based and mainland-based, who work in HE will be kind of nodding along at all of those elements of employability, because I think they're hugely transferable. I just wondered, kind of reflecting, given your role in the Highlands and then also in the islands, whether you think there are kind of particular challenges that relate to that employability question in the island context, which others might kind of share, and how you're kind of addressing those.
Well, I mean, I think there are a number of particular challenges and particular opportunities. I mean, island economies, of course, are. I mean, all economies share some characteristics, but I think island economies do have a range of different characteristics. So some of the challenges around that relate to themes of population sustainability and ensuring that there are sustainable communities with high levels of employment. I think that, but you know, in general, at the moment, there's not a big problem in the Highlands, in the islands, in Northern and Western Isles with employment. I think, sadly, projections are that might change post-COVID. I think that there are particular challenges around ensuring that employment in key sectors, and where there is specialist knowledge and skills required, ensuring that the university can provide those specialist knowledge and skills for prospective employees in the islands, as opposed to young people and career changes having to go away to get specialist skills. And of course that comes full circle to technology and to our use of technology. One of the reasons why the university was founded in the first place was to ensure that, looking at it from the angle of young people, and our university is far more than just young people, but looking at it from the angle of young people, that young people living in the islands and in the Highlands, but in this context, the islands had real opportunities to stay within their communities for their studies, and then to enter into employment. And that this is one of the things that we're hoping to build on in our island strategy. So yes, some particular challenges at this particular time, but our strategy is designed to meet those challenges.
That's great, Neil. And finally, just to link us on to the session we have next week, which is going to focus on this theme of employability and readiness for work, but particularly from a kind of school and college angle. I just wondered if you had any reflections or advice for schools and colleges operating in an island setting in terms of how they can get young people ready for either a great university like yours or to move into the world of work.
Well, I think that I think there are probably two things that I could say there in terms of preparedness. First of all, what we offer in the islands is a true blend of learning. So those who are most prepared for that blend will be those who are able to learn in using different approaches. So it's the adaptability. It's the opposite of, one pedagogy only. It's the ability to gain learning from a range of different pedagogies that would be used, whether that's face-to-face, online in various different formats, video conferencing, whatever it happens to be. But that adaptability there is the first thing that I would say. And I think the second thing I would say, and this is quite interesting, it goes back a little bit to the meeting that I was in earlier today with Skills Development Scotland, is that as we go to the future, we need not only to think about sectors in the islands. So in the Highlands, it would be things like currently perhaps energy, tourism, public sector, and so forth, health and education, for example. We need not only think about preparedness for sectors, but we need to think about preparedness for adaptability to move between sectors. So it's emphasizing those generic skills in equal weight to the specialist knowledge that you would need for a particular sector. And I think these kind of two considerations would be helpful. Now, we work very closely with all of the schools in the islands, particularly the secondary schools, and we're very active with school age young people. So there is a sense of joined upness already between the schools and the academic partners of the university in the islands. And this is because this is the advantage of us being a tertiary university. So we offer everything from access courses through to further education, through to higher education, through to PhDs, research, knowledge exchange. We offer the whole gamut in the communities in the island. So we are already very joined up with the schools in our island communities. And that is pretty fundamental to how we operate as a university.
That's great, Neil. Thank you. A real call for kind of flexibility, adaptability, which I think is really important to island communities, but also the kind of skills that pretty much everyone's going to need for those 21st century occupations. Neil, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your time. For listeners, as James said right at the top, go along to Island Innovation and sign up for the summit if you want to find out more. And hopefully you'll want to join me for the session that I'm running next Thursday. That's the 10th of September. That's at